Kids games too disturbing.
A popular video game your children may have come across. It is free, it is online, and it allows kids to... We have to warn you.
Wait, wow, what?
It is online,
I missed
and
it.
it allows kids
To torture.
We have to warn you, these images are pretty disturbing.
Follow the guide arrows on the screen to saw back and forth to remove the head.
What is this?
This is not for kids.
What game is that?
Adult entertainment.
Video games first started as a niche hobby, uncommon to the general public. Now there are more than 3 billion gamers in the world, almost half of the human population. You probably grew up playing video games at an early age, but playing games isn't always a positive experience. Sometimes they can give you nightmares, or in some situations leave you scarred for life. Today we'll be looking at kids games that are too disturbing for kids, and as we go deeper, we'll uncover just how dark video games can really get. And as always, I hope you guys have an absolutely marvelous week. The Cursed Baby Panda Game. The panda is one of the cutest animals in the world, which also happens to be the mascot of a YouTube channel for kids, Baby Bus. In their description, Baby Bus provides intelligent early childhood educational content for kids up to 6. But what's interesting about Baby Bus is how big it really is. On YouTube, Baby Bus has over 130 million subscribers across multiple channels. Outside of YouTube, Baby Bus also makes a lot of mobile games targeting children, one of them being Baby Panda Dental Care. Released on April 27th, 2020 on the Google Play Store, Baby Panda Dental Care has over 10 million downloads. The game is rated for a 3-year-old audience and allows players to step into the role of a dentist. All patients in the game are cute animals who look for you to fix their teeth. The game is really innocent. But Baby Panda Dental Care wasn't always like this. In 2017, Chick World, another kids mobile game developer, released their own version of Baby Panda Dental Care. It had the same name as Baby Bus.
This looks like a horror game.
Similar gameplay, but it looks like this. This version of the game has highly unsettling visuals.
Oh my
There's only
God.
one patient, a panda with its dirty yet detailed teeth. The end result is an uncanny valley-like experience. The uncanny valley is used to describe an uncomfortable feeling that we get when something feels human, but it isn't. The panda you meet in the game doesn't look anything like a real panda. It has a mouth that looks human and its eyes are wide open. Throughout the operation, the panda stares at you without blinking. It already feels creepy enough for adults, so for kids it would be even worse. In 2019, Chick World's Baby Panda Dental Care was removed from the Play Store. But by then, it already had over 10,000 installs. The mobile game may be gone, but the browser version can still be played today, rebranded as Cute Panda Dentist Care. These next...
I just want to see. I just want to see what the like. I just want to see what it's about, chat. You know? Is it really that bad? Cute Panda Dentist Care. Alright, yeah, it is kind of strange him staring into my soul like this. I won't. Open your mouth, buddy. Oh! Yeah, I get what you're saying. Alright, fill your mouth up. Alright, suck it out. Yeah, I can see how this can be kind of cursed. Yeah. Okay. I can see how this could be kind of cursed. For sure. Especially for a 3-year-old. Imagine a 3-year-old playing this. Come on, buddy. Open up. Let's see what you got. Alright. Alright, suck that up. Suck that up. Suck that up. Suck that up. Click that. Alright, now let's brush these babies. There we go, buddy. Let me whiten you up. I gotta remove these ones, though. Oh, let me inject you real quick. Let me... What am I doing? 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 Inject him! Put it in him! Inject him, bro. Why doesn't... I need to take the medicine? Give him the medicine? It's not injecting him. I can't grab it. Am I missing something here? Swipe the other way. I think it's glitching. Oh. Okay. There we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. Give us some time. Give us some time. Give us some time. Ding, 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 ding. Let me get that. Oh, it's okay, buddy. Oh, it's okay, buddy. Come here. I got you some new ones, baby. Look at you. You have some. You look crazy right now, boy. Wow.
I got a question for you. You want to get in?
Wow.
In the biggest reality show in the dark web.
Pretty good game if you ask me.
Next games inspired by Disney are surprisingly rebranded as Cute Panda Dentist Care. These next games inspired by Disney are surprisingly not appropriate for a younger Disney-loving audience. The dark influence of Frozen. Making content for kids comes with a lot of restrictions, but do it properly and you'll hit the lottery. Look no further than Disney. Both Frozen 1 and 2 ranked in the top 5 highest grossing animated films of all time. From the songs to the merchandise, Frozen is a franchise that shaped the childhood of millions across the world.
And I wasn't even a child.
Took advantage of this and created hundreds of thousands of Frozen merch. The catch, most of them are fake, but these unlicensed goods aren't just physical.
Oh my God, that actually would have been a crazy come up. What was I doing as a teenager? I should have been on the lookout for how to make the big bucks. That would have been a crazy come up. Frozen's dropping. Sell some knockoff merch. Oh my God. All right, bro. Next Disney movie that drops, I'm on it. I'm scamming these children. I'm scamming them.
Digital too. Fake Frozen games are everywhere. This is just one example. Snow Queen Flying Knife. The goal of this game is to toss knives at targets that appear on a rotating wooden circle. But the circle also has Hans, the villain from the first Frozen movie, strapped onto it. Hitting Hans results in, well, let's just say, really graphic imagery and screaming. But that's not even scratching the surface of how weird these fake Frozen games can get. A lot of these games put players in the role of a surgeon, operating on Frozen characters in a gruesome fashion. Elsa Cesarean Birth is a game where you have to help Elsa give birth by cutting to deliver the baby. On top of the gore, what makes this game even more disturbing for kids is that it's possible to lose the game, suggesting that if you fail, it's possible that the baby or Elsa herself didn't make it. Other games that deal with the health of Frozen characters include Baby Elsa spinal surgery, Frozen Anna brain surgery, and Olaf eye care. A lot of
like the eye care surgery, dental surgery, is that like the thing now? Are those the bop games for kids? Because, like, that's dang near all we have right now.
Kids love the Frozen characters, so showing them with serious injuries can leave them pretty uncomfortable. But some of these fake Frozen games are much worse, but we can't talk about those ones or YouTube would be furious. Frozen isn't the only franchise with tons of problematic kids content online, but it is the biggest. On YouTube, there was the Elsagate incident. Hundreds of thousands of YouTube kids videos were discovered as being very inappropriate for kids. But unlike Elsagate, it doesn't seem like these fake Frozen games will be getting banned anytime soon. Yet in the world of disturbing kids games, it's not always gore that makes it problematic. Sometimes just the style of the game itself is enough to give kids nightmares. The truth behind Majora's Mask.
Majora's Mask.
For kids growing up in the early 90s, the console war they'll remember was fought by Sega and Nintendo. But by the end of it, Nintendo won. What made Nintendo different from competitors was its family-friendly image. Nintendo's marketing strategy is the reason why we have huge gaming franchises like The Legend of Zelda. Their popularity is largely thanks to how Nintendo catered their games to a younger audience. But even then, there are some games from Nintendo that players find dark. In the Legend of Zelda series, one of the old classics that still gets discussed to this this day is Majora's Mask. Considered by many to be the creepiest Zelda game, Majora's Mask haunted the dreams of a lot of its players.
I had a nightmare.
To understand why Majora's Mask was so chilling, you have to understand what it was like when the game first came out. The previous entry in the franchise, Ocarina of Time, brought the series into 3D for the first time and became one of the greatest video games of the decade.
It has some of the most iconic
Is Zelda that good? I could just never get into it. Like, what? But everybody loves it. Like, you ask anybody about Zelda and they're like, oh yeah, Zelda? It's so amazing. It's like a classic. Do I need to play Zelda? Like, am I missing something?
all of gaming, and at the time, it flawlessly captured the grandiose feeling of adventure. Ocarina of Time influenced the path of the entire medium of video games.
To follow up on this historic achievement, Eiji Aonuma, the lead designer of the Zelda games, was given an impossible task. He had to develop the sequel to Ocarina of Time within a year. The stress of this deadline gave him nightmares. According to an interview, it was these nightmares that inspired the dark elements of Majora's Mask. And on April 27, 2000, the game was finally released for the Nintendo 64. So from Link being a triumphant hero in Ocarina of Time, how does Majora's Mask kick things off? With Link getting robbed and being transformed into a plant-like creature. Right off the bat, the game has a pretty grim tone, and to make matters worse, there is a time limit that plays an important role in the game.
It deals with some pretty dark stuff, especially at its time of release and for a Zelda game. I mean, you have 3 days to save Termina, or everyone gets crushed by a moon that's inching ever closer by the second.
For a lot of kids who didn't know what they were doing, they were greeted by this bad ending of the moon destroying everything. The moon itself is the stuff of nightmares, with an evil face always looking down at the player. The game's depressing atmosphere is thanks to the fact that its world is ending in 3 days. Some characters in Majora's Mask either live in denial or in complete hopelessness. For example, the swordsman at the school says he's not scared of the falling moon and thinks he can cut it into pieces. But in the final 6 hours before the moon falls, if you go to the school, the swordsman barricades himself in a hidden room curled up crying, terrified of what's to come. If you beat the game by saving the world, no matter what you do, there is no happy ending. In the end credits, most of the residents of Termina are celebrating, except the Deku Butler, one of the characters you meet in the game. The game's good ending always shows him mourning the loss of his son. It's grim moments like this throughout the game that fills the player with a sense of emptiness. In the end, Majora's Mask was a game born from the nightmares of its creator and brought to life. Fast forward 20 years later, and the game is still being analyzed by YouTubers to this day. Majora's Mask also inspired Ben Drowned, one of the most popular internet horror stories from the mid-2000s.
What?
Surprisingly, Majora's Mask isn't the only Nintendo game inspired by its creator's experiences. The game in our next chapter turns its creator's childhood.
I gotta give Zelda a go, clearly.
The game based on a scarred childhood. While Majora's Mask explores a darker, more mystical world, let's shift gears to something more grounded in reality. This video sponsor, War Thunder. War Thunder is a vehicle.
He gets me every time. No, I'm serious. He gets me every time. Like, I don't know how the heck he just slides that in there every time, boy. Which one you gonna play? I'm not sure. Maybe the first one, right?
Combat MMO game with more than 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships to choose from. These vehicles are legit very realistic. The game has beautiful graphics and sound effects to immerse you in the experience. So when I was a kid, I wanted to become a fighter pilot and spent hours researching fighter jets. I can tell you that War Thunder pays attention to detail. They have a sophisticated vehicle damage model with every vehicle broken down into its specific parts like the engine and fuel tank. And the craziest part to me is the damage X-ray. When you get hit, vehicles suffer damage to their components and the crew inside. Play War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox now by using my link in the pinned comment or description. New and returning players that haven't played in 6 months get a massive bonus pack. That includes premium vehicles, the Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium account. To celebrate the new year 2024, all players can, until the end of January, also claim 3 exclusive Gaijin snail decals to decorate your vehicles. While The Legend of Zelda is a household name at this point, Earthbound doesn't exactly have the same recognition. Released on June 5th, 1995, Earthbound, a traditional Japanese role-playing game, was brought to the Super Nintendo. In Earthbound, you control 4 kids who go on an adventure to save the world. The game looks innocent enough with its colorful environments and quirky humor, but it also has dark moments. Underneath Earthbound's innocent appearance are creepy sequences scattered throughout the game.
That's what it looks like.
You'll come across happy village.
It's the
This town is
KKK!
home to the Happy Happiest, a cult whose members look like certain cult members in real life. Later on in the game, you arrive at a location called Moo. Here, one of your party members named Pooh have to undergo training by meditating. During the meditation, an ominous face will descend on Pooh, engulfing him. All this happens while a dark ambient track plays in the background. The face will then ask your permission to break Pooh's legs and remove his arms, among other disfiguring acts. Selecting no will cause the player to fail, and they'd have to repeat the meditation from the beginning. Even though it's just text-based, it's pretty chilling, especially for a younger player. It's even more twisted when you remember that Pooh is slightly younger than Ness, who is just 13. But the scene doesn't compare to the terror that is Gygus, the game's final boss. The fight against Gygus is unlike anything gaming has seen before. It doesn't have hype music or a grand stage, just a nightmarish background with distorted sound effects. The fight is divided into 5 stages, each filling the player's soul with dread. What makes this fight so chilling is the image of Gygus itself, which is thought to be based on an unborn child inside the mother's womb. While this theory is later proven to be false, what a lot of Earthbound players didn't know is that the game is based on a childhood experience that scarred its creator, Shigesato Itoi.
When he was a child, Itoi went to a movie to catch a flick with some friends, when unfortunately he walked into the wrong theater. He mistook this one love scene between 2 characters to be a romantic one, but in reality it was, well, something not so consensual and advertiser friendly, if you know what I mean.
This moment changed Itoi forever. Later on, as an adult, Itoi drew on the loss of his innocence as inspiration for making Earthbound. While the game is remembered today as a cult classic, it didn't change the fact that it was a deeply disturbing game for kids. And for the developers in our next chapter, their goal isn't to express themselves artistically. Sometimes the goal is to spread propaganda even at the expense of kids. PETA's disturbing propaganda.
PETA dropping games?
Treatment of animals or
what the fuck? What the fuck? Sub for the only. I did not promise an OnlyFans. What are we talking about right now?
PETA is an animal rights group with an interesting history. Online, you can find hate for the organization almost everywhere. PETA is known for its outlandish publicity stunt. You might not know this, but surprisingly, they've also made a few video games. A lot of these games are parodies of beloved Nintendo titles. They're free and can be played on PETA's website. But unlike the Nintendo games that they're based on, PETA's versions aren't very kid-friendly. Pokemon Black and Blue is a good example of this. The game's cover art shows Pikachu and other Pokemon injured. Player versus player combat is similar to Nintendo Pokemon games, but very short, with only 4 fights in total. But after the first fight, Nurse Joy, the nurse in all the Pokemon games, will appear to give you a treasure chest. Choosing to accept the treasure chest will open a new tab that plays a video.
Hold on. PETA's games look kind of crazy. Oh, they got a lot. They have a lot of games, dog. Don't stop. Bro, I low-key want to run one. I low-key want to run one. I will, after the video, we're gonna run one. Let's finish the video and then let's run a game. It's not. It's family friendly.
That's a pig, Luke. Alright, we're not playing that. That's
App that plays a video.
That's a pig, Luke.
Wait, what?
To accept the treasure chest will open a new tab that plays a
Wait, what? Wait, hold on.
Chest. Choosing to accept the treasure chest will open a new tab that plays a video.
That's a pig, Luke. Alright, we're not playing that. That's
Whoa, what is that?
Okay, so nothing is worse than getting a shock video. Oh, essentially what you have is a shock video here, like, right?
Yeah.
And then decorating that in a children's video game.
Yeah.
And using that as a mechanism to show and shock people.
Pretty bad.
To try and push off your propaganda. That is up.
PETA repeats this formula in a lot of their parody games. In their second Pokemon parody game, Pokemon Red, White, and Blue, you fight against McDonald's characters. After the first fight, you'll be asked if you want to open a treasure chest, which takes you to an age-restricted video. Besides the video, the gameplay of both Pokemon games isn't too disturbing, but the same can't be said for PETA's Cooking Mama parody game. The original Cooking Mama game is a series of cooking simulators made up of a lot of cute mini-games. PETA's version has you preparing a turkey for Thanksgiving. The game shows a lot of blood blood and internal organs, and like the Pokemon parodies, it's also linked to an external video.
Cooking Mama's audience is obviously kids, and they very easily could stumble upon this game. And they could just as easily get to the point in this game and then get scarred by this video.
Both Cooking Mama's developer and Nintendo have responded to PETA's versions of their games and decided not to take any legal action against them. The twisted use of propaganda in these children's games disturbed some kids, but in our next game, even adults were terrified about it too. The scariest arcade game ever.
What is this?
Going to the arcade is usually a fun experience for the whole family. With all kinds of genres, there's always a game for everyone. Well, most of the time. Unlike our previous entries, which relied on gore or a creepy atmosphere, this arcade game has gained a legendary reputation for the pure, unfiltered terror it creates. Sinistar.
Many of you might not have even heard of.
No.
Yet it still managed to scare the life out of countless children and even adults.
Isn't this just that battleship game?
Created by Williams
Star
Electronics
game?
in 1983, Sinistar is a game where you pilot a spaceship from a bird's eye view. It was revolutionary for being the first sit-down arcade game to have stereo sound. The immersive audio gave it the feeling of sitting inside a cockpit, and thanks to this new technology at the time, arcade goers were blown away.
I used to play this at the bowling alley all the time.
There's nothing scary about the game at all. You control your ship with a joystick, firing your laser at things while trying not to get hit.
This is just the average bowling alley game. You know, you ever been going on to the bowling alley and they have those arcades, right? And in between, like, setting up for the bowling you play? What?
But as you keep playing, you'll hear something.
Before I can see the monster, I can hear him in what must be the most frightening introduction of any character in gaming history.
Just the mere thought of this voice would give me a
I don't think I got this far. Or is it a different
I would not be able to sleep for days.
Beware, coward. Run, coward.
I ain't running. You a bitch!
That was the voice of the game's boss, Sinistar. All of Sinistar's lines were recorded by Chicago DJ John Dormus, except for one line. Sinistar's iconic scream was a lion's roar recorded from a zoo. This was the roar that struck fears in the hearts of countless children back in the 80s. But it
tell them children to stop being some bitches, man!
It wasn't just the voice. Sinistar is one big monstrous face that relentlessly chases the player down. Your spaceship's attacks do not work on Sinistar, and the only way to beat it is to collect the crystals. These crystals turn into weapons called Cinnabombs, which is the boss's only weakness. The game never gave clear instructions on this mechanic, so for a lot of kids playing this back in the day, the sudden appearance of this unbeatable force of nature made their blood run cold. This was also before the internet was a thing, so most players never figured out how to beat Sinistar. Those who do defeat Sinistar will be shocked to learn that he keeps coming back. The game's difficulty and its terrifying reputation ended up costing the developer Williams Electronics. Sinistar did not become a commercial success when it first launched, but decades later, the arcade game now has a huge cult following as a collector's piece. Sinistar is a blast from the past for many adults today. The game's amazing use of sound set the trend for many horror games today. But sometimes when a business strategy doesn't work, you have to try out new trends that run an entirely different form of inappropriate content. The game where you choose your own story. Episode is a free-to-play...
OMG. OMG episode. Yo, I can do a whole stream just off of this game, bro. I swear. It's amazing. OMG. It's so good. It's so good. No, this game is fire. Episode, bro? Oh my God. OMG. OMG, 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 OMG. I'm just saying, if I pulled up episode right now, I would not stop playing. It's one of those games, bro. It's one of those where you just like, I don't know. You get to choose your own story. Create your own character. Build her life. Ah. All right. Chat, so should we run up some... Should we have to run up a day where we just run up some mobile games again? Run up some PETA games? Hey man, say man, you say it. We'll be in there like swimwear. You say it. We'll be in there like swimwear. Nah, do it. You do it in your free time, not our time. Sawatowski, what's good, my boy?
visual novel-style game where players can read interactive short stories. By choosing certain options, they can affect how the story plays out. But what separates Episode from a lot of other visual novel mobile games is its user-generated content, which is in-game content that its users create themselves. The top user-submitted stories even earn their creators money. With over 12 million creators, a lot of them would do anything they can to get clicks. This leads to a lot of questionable content on Episode.
Wait.
The App Store, Episode is rated 12+, but some of the stories on the app are just not appropriate. I would be scared to read them as a 12-year-old if that was given to me. Some of them are things that you wouldn't want to see if you're 12 years old.
But it isn't just the user suitable for younger audience. Episode itself has a reputation for its weird ads that are not suitable for younger audiences. These ads usually show suggestive scenarios. Episode often advertises its games through other kids' mobile games. Because of this, a lot of kids were exposed to Episode's indecent ads even before getting to play a second of the game. This drew a very angry reaction from
Please
parents,
don't let your
since
children
this
get
is how
this
some kids were
inappropriate
introduced to the game. So how does Episode make money? Like a lot of other free-to-play games, Episode uses an energy system, which is the type of currency for the game. Players spend energy to read more content. Once your energy runs out, you can either wait for more or buy energy through the app. But for Episode, their monetization gets a lot worse. Some dialogue options are locked behind a paywall. It doesn't matter how long you wait, the only way to explore these options is by paying with premium currency. Often, this content tends to be the more steamy option, if you know what I mean. So it's not being marketed towards kids. Episode tries to exploit their curiosity and make them hooked on adult content.
Also, my child racked up $40 in purchases accidentally. It was no accident. Stop. Like, your child may be a child, but they did not rack it up by accident. They knew what they were gonna get. They knew. You just didn't know your child was as out there, right? Like you don't remember being that age, what it was like. Like let's not act stupid.
Shouldn't even be consuming. From its ads to its stories, Episode has an entire ecosystem designed to profit off the undiscovered desires of its young audience. But as if suggestive animated content isn't dark already, this next game takes it one step further. A game based on a disturbing folklore. Not all games are created for the sake of enjoyment. Take, for example, the game Cosmology of Kyoto, an educational PC game released in Japan back in 1993 and North America a year later. Even though it had glowing reviews, the game didn't do well commercially. Cosmology of Kyoto barely had any players, but there were still some kids who stumbled across the game only to get scarred from the experience. Over the years, Cosmology of Kyoto gained a cult following because of just how eerie it was. It's even Guillermo del Toro's favorite game, director of famous films like Hellboy. But just what is it that makes Cosmology of Kyoto so unsettling? To answer that, we have to travel back in time to the Heian period in Japan at around the year 1000. This is when the game takes place, and right off the start, you can feel that something's off.
The illustrations are all gorgeous, with a muted color palette and deep shadows, giving it a dark and creepy edge. The sky in the background and the empty, eerie streets really give this game a forlorn and foreboding feel.
Cosmology of Kyoto doesn't have a clear goal. You can go anywhere you want around the ancient capital of Kyoto, meeting various people and even demons. Depending on how you act in these scenes, your karma will change. It determines which Buddhist hell your character is sent to when you're defeated. This is what terrified kids who played the game back in the day. Most of these hell scenes show your character being tortured by monsters. Depending on which hell you end up in, the scenes can be stomach-turning. Once you leave hell, your character will reincarnate into a different person. Sometimes you'd even reincarnate as a dog. Unfortunately, there's a lot of encounters in the game that can send your character to hell, but if that wasn't inappropriate enough, there's gameplay showing characters exposed. But even with its gruesome imagery, Cosmology of Kyoto can be educational. Every single person you meet in the game is based on real-life accounts or folklore, and you can read up on these details through the game's reference menu.
It's like having an encyclopedia of ancient Kyoto and Japanese history and folklore at your fingertips.
Violence and indecent content are captured through Cosmology of Kyoto's unique art style. Others like taking a more real-life approach to video games, making them feel uncanny. The uncanny valley of full-motion video games. 1993 was the year that changed video games forever. Games were starting to become more mainstream, and the public was getting worried. Controversial games like Mortal Kombat caused
the motion graphics this guy uses is just so beautiful.
The US Senate to create the ESRB, which is in charge of age rating games. But Mortal Kombat's violence wasn't the only thing that politicians debated about back then. Another title
is Night Trap, which is a game set in a sorority house. The object is to keep hooded men from the young woman from a...
From what? From what? From hanging? From murdering? What?
Hook.
Night Trap is
an
FMV game.
From Trap, which is a game set in a sorority house. The object is to keep hooded men from the young woman from a hook.
Night Trap is an FMV game, short for full motion video game. The game's graphics uses real life footage of actors, making it an interactive movie of sorts. Because of how realistic the game looked, a lot of people were concerned that the violence that happened on screen was too much for kids. But looking back, the only realistic thing about Night Trap was the fact that it used real people. The game's acting is poor, and it was designed to be exaggerated.
What kind of porno?
Most players didn't take it seriously.
Night Trap, the most infamous FMV game of all, which had terrible story, acting, sets,
this is just porn!
Costumes, special effects, and boring gameplay.
This is the stuff you get on CDs! If I go to Blockbuster, go all the way to the back aisle, where they don't let the kids go. This is where you get those CDs. We call them blues. Blues, right?
Stop politicians from using Night Trap as fuel to criticize video games. The game was hardly the most problematic FMV title at the time.
Like, what is this man even walking around like?
Criticize video games. The game was
Why are you walking around like a gorilla?
FMV title at the time. Instead, there was another FMV game that flew under the politicians' radar. A game so dark it got banned in multiple countries. That game is Phantasmagoria. Released on August 24th, 1995 for the PC, the game puts players in the shoes of a writer who has to survive inside a mysterious mansion. Unlike Night Trap,
I'm not gonna lie, full motion video games. It's the first time I'm actually hearing about this, and it actually sounds kind of cool. Like weird for sure, but kind of cool.
Phantasmagoria's acting was far more realistic. It's a horror game with multiple bad endings. Not only were there a lot of brutal scenes in the game, but there was even one that involved a non-consensual act. Even though the game is completely unsuitable for kids, that didn't stop many of them from playing.
It's like Blue's Clues.
The game's creator, Roberta Williams, felt that Phantasmagoria was unfairly targeted by the media. According to her, it's because at the time, many people thought of computer games as children's entertainment. The game ended up haunting the dreams of a lot of kids. Phantasmagoria was so controversial that multiple organizations called for a boycott of the game. But even after all that, the game was a commercial success.
Of course, the controversy worked its magic, and the game went on to sell over 1 million copies.
Reading controversy is something the games in our next chapter do very well. But unlike Phantasmagoria, these games weren't made to make money. They were made to offend as many people as possible, even the victims of real-life tragedies. Newgrounds' darkest games.
This is where it gets real, man. This is where it gets real. This is where it gets real. This is where I hung out. This is where I hung out. I don't know if I was on the darkest game, but I did see some pretty freaking wild games on Newgrounds as a kid, bro. My older cousins would play it, and I'd watch them, and then when they weren't around, I would go on their computer and play it, and it was always some just like horny sex game when you go further down in the line, or just some crazy shit. Man, Newgrounds.com. Whenever I just go to the site, I can just trauma.
On December 31st, 2020, Adobe Flash Player, which was a program used for
Diego, what's good? Chopper fan, what's good?
Many online games, was officially discontinued. Unless your page had certain features, that meant you couldn't play Flash games anymore. But with the end of Flash came one game that took the world by storm: Friday Night Funkin'. In 2021, Friday Night Funkin' went viral as a rhythm game with an art style inspired by many Flash games that came before it.
It was everywhere: YouTube, TikTok, mod pages, bootleg merch, Roblox, in-class
talent shows.
At a time when people were stuck in lockdown,
In-class talent shows is crazy.
Early 2000s aesthetics reminded players of the good old days. It unleashed new life into Newgrounds, the biggest community of Flash animations and games. This helped the new generation of young gamers rediscover an old part of internet culture, including its darker sides. You see, one character in Friday Night Funkin' is Pico. What a lot of players don't realize is that Pico is originally from a different game called Pico's School. Developed by Tom Fulp, the founder of Newgrounds himself, Pico's School was released way back in 1999. You play as Pico, a survivor of a school tragedy. The goal of the game is to defeat the perpetrators behind the tragedy and save the school. It's also based on a real-life incident that happened that same year in 1999. But even then, Pico's School is only the tip of the iceberg compared to some of Newgrounds' darkest titles. There were several other Flash games on the site that were also inspired by real-life tragedies. Unlike Pico's School, games like VTech Rampage put you in the shoes of the perpetrator. To beat these games, the players had to commit atrocities similar to what happened in real life. Worst of all, they even featured characters who shared the same identity as the victims in real life. When asked why these games were made, the creator who made both of them said, because it's funny.
Because it's funny, it's crazy.
Has won me enough points.
Because it's funny, it's crazy.
Stirred up a storm of controversy that family members of the victims even
Who the hell says some shit like that?
Absolutely disgusting that somebody thinks this is funny.
This man is freaking psycho. Who says because it's funny? I thought he was gonna say something like, yeah, because it's a way to bring awareness so stuff like this doesn't happen again. People can feel how crazy it is. This nigga says because it's funny. Because it's funny. Yo! I don't understand.
And we're all suffering. All the families are suffering.
Because Newgrounds values the artistic freedom of its creators, a lot of these games can still be played on the site today. Whether or not you agree with it, Newgrounds can be seen as a kind of time capsule preserving both the good and bad sides of the internet. And for a lot of kids in the early 2000s, it was their childhood, even if some ended up getting scarred from it. This was also the case for our next game, a real-life horror game. What happens if the video game you're playing isn't just a game anymore? What if you yourself become a character in a video game? These were the questions thousands of kids came face to face back in 2008 in the browser game Hotel 626. Back then, rumors spread online of a creepy browser game that you could only play between 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., forcing you to play it at night. Hence the name Hotel 626. If you head to hotel626.com, you'll be brought to a page where you have to type in your personal details. In order to play the game, you even had to turn on your webcam and microphone. Once you type everything in, the game starts. Hotel 626 was an FMV browser game, so the graphics used real-life footage. The game gives you a series of tasks, with each one being more extreme than the last. One of them even needs you to use your microphone to sing a lullaby to a baby. If you fail, you'll get jump scared. But it's the fourth task that completely paralyzed players in fear.
What you see next is hanging Polaroids of faces from other players. At the start of the game, when you click agree to using your webcam, your picture is taken
they take a
without your
pic.
knowledge, and you are now on one of these Polaroids. You have to quickly look through rows of faces until you see yourself and click on it.
So after seeing your own photo taken without you even knowing, how could it possibly get worse? Unfortunately, the answer to that question comes when your phone in real life starts to ring. And when you pick it up, this is what you'll hear. The game tells you the instructions for the next task by calling your real number. Following the instructions will lead you outside of the hotel and into a car. As you start up the engine, the game ends, right before one last jump scare. But even after the game ends, the horror doesn't, because some players reported getting a phone call days after playing the game. The voice in the call told them you never really left the hotel. There's no real escape from its horrors. Hotel 626 was a horror experience that went beyond the four corners of your screen. Sadly, Hotel626.com was shut down in 2011. The game can no longer be played today. That's because this entire game was a marketing stunt from Doritos. That's right, the game was made by Doritos to promote their black pepper jack and smoke and cheddar barbecue flavored chips. The URL hotel626.com was printed on the back of the packaging, which is how kids found out about the game. Doritos ended up making a sequel for Hotel 626 called Asylum 626, but it didn't have the same publicity as the first game. It shut down alongside Hotel 626 in 2011. This may be for the best, since what these games did with your private information crossed the line. While Hotel 626 messes with the player in real life, the video game in our next chapter...
I wanted to play Watson Scott test, but it said that it shows your freaking IP on screen, bro. I was literally gonna play it like I want to say 3 or 4 streams ago. I was getting ready to download it, and it said, people were saying it shows your IP on screen. Don't play it on live. Don't play it on live. And I'm like, dang nabbit. That would have been so fun.
Messes with the player's mind. The game is so twisted, it even made some kids physically sick. The dangers of dark Roblox games.
Oh.
If you're looking for horror games, Roblox isn't the site that comes to mind. The graphics can't compare to classic horror titles, so most games on Roblox aren't as immersive. After all, the majority of its user base is kids. The horror games that you can find on Roblox are a hit or miss, but there's one title that stood out from the rest. A game so terrifying, some players even reported feeling sick. This game is called My Eyes Deceive. You play as a girl who's been living inside a basement her whole life, which already
my god, actually a crazy game,
The very first task the game gives you is to take your pills, and for the rest of the game, the gameplay boils down to just interacting with objects. But at the end of each day in the game, before you sleep, you're tasked with talking to Papa, who's never seen and rather hidden. The conversation with him takes place near the hatch of the basement. We learn from Papa that the outside world is a dangerous place and the pills we take are for our own safety. But halfway through the game, Papa never shows up at the hatch. Eventually, you have to decide if you want to keep taking your pills or not. This is where things take a turn for the worse. You, the player, start to realize what's really unfolding when your character's asleep. The game suggests that the father was doing terrible acts. For a lot of players who played the game to its end, they're left sick to their stomachs.
It was crazy.
Deceive is a psychological horror game that's hard to play just because of how twisted the storytelling gets. There's a lot of similarities between the game and the real-life case of Elizabeth Fritzl, a woman who was locked for 24 years in the basement by her father. My Eyes Deceived was eventually removed from Roblox. While a lot of people thought that it was because of the content, this wasn't the case. It was originally released on itch.io by an indie developer called Nowadev. One Roblox user asked Nowadev if they could recreate My Eyes Deceive on Roblox, which is how it came to be on the platform. And it got so popular that even big YouTubers like Markiplier played it. Nowadev felt upset that his original version on itch.io got completely overshadowed by the Roblox version, so he wanted it taken down. At the end of the day, children's safety should always be top priority. But that will never stop some creators from developing absolutely horrible games like some of the violent and disgusting reenactments we've talked about. If you see young ones consuming gaming content that they probably shouldn't, educate them, because you never know. It may make a bigger impact on their future than you think. Visual Venture. Thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Play it for free on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox now by using my link below. New and returning players that haven't played in 6 months get a massive bonus pack, including premium vehicles. And until the end of January, all players can get 3 exclusive Gaijin snail decals. Wait, before you go, click this playlist to watch.
God, I love this man, bro. He's so good. He's so good, man.